Functionalism, the first of the three major theoretical perspectives. This one is the first historically speaking and also lays the foundation for the others. When we think of functionalism, we should think about parts and how those parts are operating together. So just as some of the other early sciences like chemistry and their periodic table of elements and things like that, early sociology was trying to figure out what are all the parts of society, what is the classification system, what are all the parts, what do they do, and then how do they work together. If you watch the intro to sociology slides, you've seen Emile Durkheim and Herbert Spencer. A couple of our other old dead guys of functionalism are Talcott Parsons and Robert Merton. So the main idea of functionalism is that society has many parts. It goes back to Spencer. Just as the human body has many parts which function together, so does society have many parts. All of these parts build up what we call the institutions in society. All of these institutions are working together to promote stability. And that stability is dynamic equilibrium, constant changing balance among all the parts. So a functionalist is going to have as their end game balance and stability of the society. It doesn't really matter what is happening underneath as long as the society itself is in balance. And that dynamic equilibrium means that if you change one part of society, something else has to counterbalance in order to bring the society back to this dynamic equilibrium. If you think about if you've ever had physical therapy and you're on that dumb balance half ball thing, so you're sitting there trying to balance and then your physical therapist throws something at you. So you've got to then balance the catching and the standing and everything together. So there's always going to be change, but that change is going to keep balancing and balancing and balancing towards stability. It is stability at all costs. So as we keep on the theme of form and function, every institution has functions, and this is the worst definition ever, the consequences of people's actions which have benefits to the system. The main way to think about functions is if we as a society decided to have this thing, whatever this thing is, post office, education system, military industrial complex, family, whatever it is, we built it for a reason. And that reason that we built it is the manifest function. The action is intended. We built the education system to educate people. So we need to have students there. We need to have teachers there. We need to have some sort of system of instruction, on and on. The latent functions, the actions are unintended. These are well, we didn't build it to do this, but it does it anyway. How cool is that? It's the unintended consequences of people's actions. Now, dysfunctions are dysfunctional. They hurt the system. And we're not even going to go into latent dysfunctions. I need to just take that off of here. But think about the mantra that if we built it for a reason. That is the best way to think about functions. And the manifest functions are the reason why we built it, to do this specific thing or this specific list of things. And then the latent functions are kind of like oops functions or side benefits of some kind. We didn't build it to do it, but how cool is it that it does it anyway? As a really quick example of manifest and latent functions, this is the education institution. So you can see that we built it to socialize, right? To teach people language and math, to expand basic skills, make sure everybody gets out of school knowing the quadratic formula, that kind of thing. Cultural innovation, education systems create culture. So most of our new knowledge, or much of our new knowledge, is created at the university system. You guys all had to download that app, Guide Safe, and a lot of our coronavirus information that's coming out in our state, at least, is coming from an educational institution. A lot of our stuff is coming out of UAB. So we look at our education systems as creators of culture and not just transmitters of culture. Society and education is supposed to bring people together. When we look around classrooms, it doesn't really matter where everybody comes from. It matters that we're here in this space, and it brings people from all over the world together into one physical space, or one internet space as we're doing it now. And then social placement. You're in school for that magical ticket that you get, that graduation, that diploma. And it is our meritocracy. It is our certificate of worthiness, basically, in society. Latent functions, it takes our children away. Those of us that have our children going to school virtually are missing that function right now. And we're almost thinking, maybe that's manifest, maybe that child care provider thing is manifest. It takes a lot of time and energy, so it fosters conformity. It engages young people, so during job hunting time, instead of looking for jobs, you're in school. Gives you relationships, and on and on and on. So this is just a really quick example of a manifest function and latent function set that is attached to an institution. Another way to think about these theoretical perspectives is think about how they approach problems in society. For a functionalist, society is always changing. They don't like it that it's changing, but it's always changing. So during this change, we have to figure out how to adapt and return the society back to equilibrium. And social problems are going to emerge during this time of social change because the world doesn't work like it used to. And you see a lot of that now with the pandemic. We've had a whole ton of social change in the last 4 months or so, and we are doing some rebalancing. And during that rebalancing and other issues, we are having social problems. We are having social problems like unemployment. We are having social problems like evictions. We are having social problems like hunger. And it's not always just because people are not too sure what behaviors are expected of them anymore. It's also because what you used to do doesn't work. And that's kind of the flip side of the coin. If you had a job and everything was good, and then all of a sudden you don't have that job anymore, well, a social problem is going to arise because that old behavior is gone. And you need to replace it with a new behavior. So functionalists are always going to be looking at rebalancing always, right? They're always rebalancing society. Functionalist ways to fix problems are going to focus at the institutional level. If you have a problem that needs to be fixed, it gets fixed at the institution. So top-down basically fixes. So if you're having problems with like high dropout rates or something like that in the education system, you're going to tweak the education system. You're not going to throw the baby out with bathwater and imagine something completely different. You're going to do the smallest change that you can possibly do because, again, functionalists don't like change. There's this constant balancing, right? So if one place is changed, then everybody else has to change. Everything else, every other institution has to change to bring us to a new balance. So there's always that fear of unintended consequences. So if we change this too much, what's it going to mess up everywhere else? And you see a lot of that mentality when you hear things like the defunding the police people. And more of the criticisms of the defund the police. It's like you make a change and then the whole world's going to go to hell in a handbasket. Well, not necessarily, right? Not necessarily, but it's a functionalist idea that because every change has to be counterbalanced by another change, they kind of assume all those other changes are going to be negative, and they really can't imagine what something different is going to look like.